This is partly how companies make sure that the government, basically, they have the government's ear. We also looked at the lobby money that they give to political action committees, for example, and to congressmen. We found that more than half of the senators that they spent money on are actually on the Appropriations Committee, and their most generous donations went to the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Homeland Security, which oversees funding for these detention centers.
And overall, how many people are incarcerated now?
On an average day, you'll see about 30,000 immigrants in detention in the United States. About 20% of those, and that number is growing, are in large sort of box detention centers where they hold hundreds to thousands of people, primarily in the South and Southwest, where it's easier to put people on planes and send them return them to their home countries. Essentially, this business has boomed after the government moved from a practice of catch and release, as they called it, to a practice of catch and remove. And the situation that has resulted has been an increase in the demand for beds because people are no longer allowed to be free as their deportation hearings are pending or if they have appeals pending. Instead, they're detained in these facilities, and sometimes for as long as 6 months.
Sergio Santibanez spent 16 months at CCA's Houston Processing Center before being deported to Mexico last year. Renee Feltz and Stokely Bach spoke to Sergio from Mexico this year.
The conditions there are horrible. Besides that, they treat you like an animal. When you first get there, they tell you you're nobody. When I got there, the mattresses were torn. They gave us horrible things to eat, which I don't think were even fit to feed to dogs. The one for immigrants is worse, because I've been in federal prison, and there they give good food, treat you well, and if somebody complains about bad treatment they say they've been subjected to or to discrimination, they pay attention, but not here. Here it's worse because they even tell you that you have to put up with it because we came to them, not them to us. And so we, in the meantime, don't have a right to anything.
Sergio Santibanez is talking about the Houston detention facility. This is her daughter, Luisana Santibanez.
We actually enjoyed visiting her in the federal prison more than we did visiting her in the detention center because at the federal prison, the visitation room had a living room-like environment, so we could all sit around a small table, and we could only physically hug my mom before and after the visit, but we could sit there and speak with her for the whole day. And we thought that the detention center visitation room would be somewhat different, if not more open, given that the people in there weren't actually convicted of crimes, right? They're there for immigration proceedings. It was the exact opposite. There we were divided by the plexiglass, and we only had 30 minutes to see her. Long waiting period, and it was bad. Even though, we were sad to see that she got deported, that probably would have to be the most happiest moment of our family's life in a long time because for the first time in 2 years, we would be given a chance to actually hug her and be with her a little bit, and it took her some time to recover. I think anyone who's been in prison for a long time can tell you about the effects of having to go through that experience. But I would have to say that her detention was probably the most excruciating experience for our family.
Luisana Santibanez talking about Sergio Santibanez and her detention. Renee, you had done this interview.
Right. Sergio Santibanez's case is a classic example of how these detention centers, largely run by private companies, play a key role in ICE justifying its existence. As Congress has failed to pass comprehensive immigration reform, the focus regarding immigration is on enforcement. ICE has to have its numbers ramped up to show how many people they're deporting, as many as 300,000 last year. Basically, when they put Sergio Santibanez in this detention center, they refused to release her until she agreed to leave the country. And that's the case for the majority of detainees that go in there. They never see the light of day after whatever way that they're picked up when they apply for their green cards, during immigration raids, some of them along the U.S.-Mexico border. And they're there until they agree to leave the country. It plays a key role in the U.S. enforcement
policy. How much lobbying do these private corporations do?
They spend millions a year on lobbying. It's not surprising. When you look at the disclosure records, you'll see that they are concentrating, at least in part, on Homeland Security, which is ICE, on immigration issues, on issues that have to do with transparency of what takes place inside their facilities.
Lobbying against.
Yes. And it's interesting, if you look at the lobbying expenditures of CCA between 2004 and the present, you'll see a steady increase in the amount that they donate to Democrats. Before, we would see, I looked up the numbers this morning. In 2006, they spent about $4,000 on Democrats. In 2008, $35,000. So you can already see a steady increase. In CCA's most recent earnings conference call with their shareholders and with analysts, they said that they don't really anticipate any change in the demand for detention beds, depending on if Senator McCain or Senator Barack Obama get elected. They anticipate that that there will still be an increase in the steady demand. In fact, they've got 10,000 beds in the pipeline ready for the government should they want them.
Zoe Lofgren, Congressmember from California, how much power do these private corporations have that are running these prisons? How much accountability, and what are you doing about it in Congress?
Well, I have serious concerns about how detention is being conducted, and also the fact that people are over-incarcerated in the immigration system. Take the situation of Mr. Ng, who so tragically died. I mean, this is an individual whose notice for a hearing was sent to the wrong address. Consequently, he didn't go to the hearing because he didn't know about it. To arrest him as the only result of that and refuse to let him go when he has a U.S. citizen wife, a job, owns a home, has 2 children is a ridiculous situation. And certainly, his matter needed to be reviewed and sorted through, but there was no need at all, and he should not have been in custody at all. The case of the Iranian family seeking political asylum in Canada, they shouldn't have been in custody at all. They should have been on their way back to Canada. So first you have to look at who's being put into these facilities.
California Congressmember Zoe Lofgren, unfortunately we have to end it there because the show has come to an end, but we will continue to follow your legislation. Thank you so much to Renee Feltz and to Joshua Bardavid. That does it for our broadcast. You can go to our website, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks so much for joining us.